good, everybody, and welcome back to Interviews with your boy Manny and my man Sheriff Lou Evangelitis. Man, time flies when we're having fun. Can you believe like our hour is almost up?
Crazy.
So, being that we're already out of time, I did want to make sure that our community got some of their questions answered. And before I get to that, I just wanted to thank you again for all the information you provided to both my questions and John's questions. So here we go. Let's jump right into, I have 3 community questions here. The first is from our dear friend, Miss Maria Ravelli of Worcester Community Fridges. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for the question. And she says, in 2018, you called for Senator Warren to apologize to law enforcement for the comment she made, stating that the country's criminal justice system is racist front to back. In what ways do you believe racial bias plays a role in our justice system? This question continued, says, we know that a system built on hate cannot be reformed. What steps are you taking to ensure law enforcement are properly trained and committed to protect the lives of community members of color? So 2 parts there. In what ways do you believe racial bias plays a role in our justice system? And what steps are you taking to ensure law enforcement are properly trained and committed to protect the lives of community members of color?
Yeah, well, I appreciate these questions, and it gives me a chance to kind of address some issues like this. The first thing I'll mention is when my response to Senator Warren's comment, and I'll be clear on this, Manny. It's been my life in politics and in life as a person, okay? I've said this publicly. I'll say it to you right now, to your listening audience. Both of these national parties, in my mind, have sold us down the toilet. Mm-hmm. We need to do better. The youth of this country are going to get left a mess. Mm-hmm. And if they think either of these parties are out to represent them, they're just being used. That's how I look at it. Now, there's some great people in each party. There's some great ideas. But the idea that this one ideology works and the other doesn't, I'm so tired of that type of inflammatory language. That statement, in my opinion, was made just to incite certain people front to back, indict the whole system. Mm-hmm. That means that anybody in law enforcement is a racist. That's what I heard. Right. From back, and that doesn't help anything.
When she says, when it's a blanket statement like that from front to back.
Come on, you're better than that, Senator Warren. You are better than that. She knows better than that.
So I kind of tend to agree with Senator Warren, believe it or not.
No, I'll address the issues where it exists, Minnie. I'm not saying in any way it doesn't
exist. It's not necessarily on an individual basis, or I guess I should say I know that there are individuals that aren't racist and that have joined law enforcement for other reasons. Maybe they just really want their communities to be safe, especially there are law enforcement personnel of color, right? Mm-hmm. They can't be racist,
right?
Well, I know that's left up to the individual, but for the most part, communities of color, they're not. You would think they're not joining the police force to be racist against their own communities, right? We can agree
hope
there,
not,
right? So to say front to back, I hear what you're saying and where you're coming from, but also the whole idea of policing in America was born out of slavery, which is a racist institution. And it has
the whole idea of what?
Of policing in America.
Well, we had policing
and it has
in countries without slavery. Policing's existed since probably thousands of years.
What countries? Because colonialism is what brought policing to a lot of countries, which was based in, there was a lot of slavery and racism. We're talking about European countries, right? That colonized all these other countries that have policing. You know what I'm trying to go.
I don't want to get lost in that example because what we really need to discuss about is the history of law enforcement in this country and the history of racial inequities within the justice system. Yeah. And I don't think anybody with a straight face, I won't ever disagree with that statement.
Yeah, the history of law enforcement in this country is rooted in slavery.
I don't. Maybe I don't. All I know is that the history of law enforcement with the people of color in this country has not been the most just system, and that's where I focus on it. I'm Greek on my father's side. I think the ancient Greece had police forces, and I think the Romans did, and I think it's existed for thousands of years. So I've never thought of it in those terms. I want to focus on the idea of the American justice system, and I thought the basis of the question was based on how it has been implemented.
And I think, not to interrupt you, I apologize, but I think the issue of racism is different in America than it is around the rest of the world as well, right? Racism around the rest of the world has a different connotation than it holds in America, mainly because of slavery, right? So at the very least, you see, I mean, you would probably know these numbers better than I would. There's a much higher percentage of black and brown people in our criminal justice system or in our prisons, in our jails, than there are of white people, right?
Okay, now let me address that issue because, I mean, historically speaking, as I said, I will be the first to admit that there have been racial injustices in this country, and there have been parts of this country particularly that were very racist in its enforcement of the laws. Absolutely. And there have been inequitable outcomes in similar cases. There have been arrests made. We all know that people in certain communities will be more likely to be pulled over and arrested than people in other communities. You know what I'm talking about, socioeconomic as much as racial, but a lot of times they go hand in hand. Absolute facts. But I will say this, Manny, just in fast forward a little, I hear that argument all the time, and I agree with it overall. But I also like people to come back maybe to Massachusetts and say, well, don't throw everybody into the same baby into the bathwater, because I think if you look at the Massachusetts penal system, it is far different, and I'm making up an example now, than like, say, Mississippi or Alabama's. And if I looked at my numbers, I've looked at the incarceration rates of black and brown people in some states that are completely out of whack with their population trends. In Massachusetts, it's not so much so. So the numbers are different depending on where you're looking at them. So if you want to talk about as America as a whole, I can't argue that people of color have disproportionately been impacted by the criminal justice system. I agree with you.
To the second part of the question, though, what steps are you taking to ensure that law enforcement are properly trained and committed to protecting the lives of community members of color?
Well, the Criminal Justice Reform Act that was passed, I think it was in 2020, has to do with an extensive amount of training that's required across the board, including my deputized correctional team, if I avail myself to that. So I think we've all recognized issues that need to be dealt with. It has a lot to do with training, a lot to do with awareness, a lot to do with better policing, not throwing the baby out, but just better policing. I'm proud to say that I look at a community like Worcester, because that's all I can do, Manny. I can't like look around this country and say what's going on in, you know, various parts of the Midwest or the South or whatever. I can look at Worcester, Mass.
Here, yeah. That's where you're. And
I feel good about the things we work on here. I think we have a very good relationship overall with the Worcester community and the Worcester Police Department. Of course, there are things that can be better. We have gang task forces. They work closely together at the jail as well. We try to get integrated. We try to look at ourselves as part of the community because we don't want to have a lot of the problems that other people have had. And you've seen a lot of unrest in this country significantly, and many of that was long overdue. I'm proud of the fact that Worcester has not been a powder keg of that, because I think we have always been a community that's been a little ahead of the curve on that stuff. But the training, we need to make sure that people understand the world we live in and how we've not been properly utilizing the criminal justice system, especially against people of color and things like that. So I 100% understand the issue. I believe we have to do better. I believe we need to enhance training, enhance awareness, and we have to be aware of what we're doing. I mean, you have to understand that it has to be done fair. Justice is not, is really what I think this system is based on, is justice. Justice has to be, it's not justice if it's not fair.
Right.
It has to be across the board. So I know we've talking a lot about it. That's been one of the issues of our times, I'd say, in the last 5 years. I think it's a very important discussion we're having, and I'm glad we're having it as a nation. And I think we're making progress, and it's a work in progress. This country has, I mean, I often think of this, and people don't. I'm just going to tell you one thing off. It's a little bit off target, but, you know, people forget the things about, like the Civil War, for example. I never forget what Abraham Lincoln said once, because it's quotes I'll never forget. And he said, when he was in the depths of trying to get through that Civil War, he said, "This war will not end until God has made sure that the American people have paid for the injustices that were done to those people in slavery." That's how deep this has gone in this country. So we've been fighting this fight of justice and fairness and equality for our whole country's history, and we're still working through it. And I just got to believe, in the end of the day, this is still the greatest country on earth. It's still the greatest opportunity on earth, and we just got to keep working on being better and fair about it. So that's the best way I can answer that question.
So what is Worcester County Sheriff's Department doing? What programs are currently in motion to help with making sure that the law enforcement officers are committed to protecting lives of
We have a
community of color?
we have our own training staff, which have regular updated training. So we incorporated that type of learning experience into our training program. So we hire our own people. They have to go through an orientation program. Our own correctional staff goes through our own in-house 12-week treatment program. Training program. And then every year, every employee has to go to updated training programs. So we've just integrated a lot of these ideas on criminal justice and fairness and those type of programs into our curriculum. And I'm still looking for more programming and more things to implement. So it's a work in progress.
And just a little addition of my own to this question. Are you doing anything to improve representation and inclusion, diversity within the department?
I can tell you this. I am so proud, and this is going to be words, and I'm telling you right now, anybody can say they're just words. I'm telling you, I don't set like a specific quotas because I don't know. I'm looking for people to apply for work, and I want the most diverse work crowd. I want my diversity of my staff to represent the diversity of the people we serve. I want that, and I'll tell you right now, 100% that's what I want it to be. But it's hard to attract people into law enforcement now, particularly people of color. So I'm having trouble recruiting, and then when I get people, especially of color or women, they have so many opportunities to leave me for higher paying jobs, and they leave. It's very frustrating to me. I'll give you one comment. I had a guy, Johnny Graham. I don't know if you know Johnny Graham.
I don't know. Great
guy. Works at the committee. He was one of my lieutenants. I promoted him to captain. 20 years he was on the job. He came in the next day. He's like, sorry, Sheriff. I decided I'm going to retire instead, So we had our 7 captains that were promoted. Now, I was so excited to have him be a person of color, promoted to captain. I promoted the first deputy. Now, I didn't know this, but Captain Jackson came into my office after to meet with me. And he said, I just want to tell you before he left, he goes, how proud I am that I'm the first person of color to be promoted to deputy at the sheriff's department. Now, I'm appalled by that. I want to be clear on that. That was one of the saddest, most appalling statements I ever heard, but it was a fact. The point is, I did not inherit a very diverse place. So I had to build it. You know what I mean? I had to build it. Like I'm on Massport board. We include diversity and inclusion in everything we do. We have programs where we're trying to build people in the community to come into, like, for example, like pilots or people in the airline industry. There's underrepresented by people of color. So we've got the money and the ability. We got pilots programs where we go into our community colleges and we offer scholarships for people who are diverse to come into the field. It's harder for me to do that as sheriff because I have limited abilities, but I assure you, we give the highest consideration to people of color who apply for our department because we want to represent the people we represent. But if I have 50 applicants and there aren't more than 3 or 4 people of color, that makes it hard for me to hire a reflective workforce. So we've been very frustrated by that. Even in my promotions, it's a slow work in progress, Manny, but we've been there 12 years. We have absolutely improved the diversity of the workforce, but we still have more work to do. But a lot of it comes down to recruitment and retention. And if you have any ideas on this, I've said this before, you got people that want to come work for the Worcester County Sheriff's Department, send them my way.
100%. If you guys want to work for the Worcester County Sheriff's Department, let us know. Hit us up at Manny J Media on Instagram or Facebook, and we'll hook it up. I got direct access to my man Lou right here.
You sure do.
I'll make sure that we get you guys connected. But because we're running out of time, I just want to get to these last 2 questions. This one should be quick for you. Why did you run on ending the culture of political patronage while hiring the chair of the Public Safety Committee?
Okay, well, I appreciate that question. I did run on the promise of entering a culture of patronage in politics because that's what it was. And quite frankly, it was a lot of what we had to do with. It was about hiring political cronies who, frankly, did not have any diversity. That was a big part of that cronyism. It's probably what we talk about institutionalized situations, right? So everybody had to know somebody to apply for a job at the Worcester County. So after 50 years of that, I inherited a place that is not reflective of this community. It's reflective of the people that were connected to get jobs. And number one, they were frankly not the most qualified people to get hired. And they were certainly not a diverse group of people that got hired. And that's what I inherited. 50 years of that. And I'm making that number up.
And when you get that, do you really get people who are there for the best interest of the people being served?
Absolutely not. They get there because they couldn't get a job anywhere else or it was a paycheck, the lack of commitment. So I'm not castigating everybody. There was a lot of great people when I got there, but I made a promise. We've stuck to it. We've had, God, I probably had 20 or 30 arbitrations in my first year or two because we held people accountable if you didn't do the job. So we did do that, Manny. But this idea of, what would you say? It was the chairman of public safety?
Yeah, the chair of the public safety committee.
I don't know who that is, and I've never heard of him or her, and I can promise you I've never hired such a person. So somebody must have started a rumor that we hired some nonsense, but we didn't.
You have a public safety committee at the sheriff's department?
No.
So I'm guessing this is for the city?
Kate Toomey. Okay,
Toomey.
City of Worcester. She was on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we now that this is something to talk about, okay? So we talked earlier about a Republican. Kate Toomey is a pretty well-known Democrat in the city of Worcester. We have a community outreach team that does after incarceration support services. You know, we call it reentry services. We had a team we were building. We needed people that were very integrated in the community to know where to place people. In other words, you get out of jail, where are you going to go? Where are the homeless shelters? Where are the treatment programs? Kate was someone we thought could help us with that program. So because of her knowledge of the city and her willingness to do it, I reached across party lines and brought her on board. So I did hire her. I did not know Kate Toomey when I ran for office. She's never been associated with me as an ally. She was just someone I've known as a city councilor who asked me, probably did others, about possibilities of employment. And I asked her for a resume, and I felt she could be plugged into a useful place. And she's done a great job. So, yeah, I mean, thank you for clarifying. I had no idea. I didn't know she was even the chair of the public safety, to be honest.
So, yeah, thanks. We appreciate you, John. Back there, making sure he's fact-checking us live. I appreciate that in real time. So with that, it just brings me... Cole, how much time we got, bud? We got to wrap up? We got to have you back. We got to talk more. I have more questions, but so I'm not going to press on with this one. But I just personally think there's better people, no shade against Kate Toomey, in City Hall who would, given the whole fact that there's law enforcement in Kate Toomey's family history, past, right? That right there is kind of, in my opinion, a conflict of interest. But then also, you know, I just feel like there may be, I don't really know like the timing of all this. But for me, it would seem like a better idea to have someone like Christian King, for example, in that position. Someone who is a black male who has been in the realm, at least, of victimization by police. You know what I mean? So that they'd be able to recognize these things and be more of an advocate for the community than an advocate for the police. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother show. You got to come back. We can talk more about that. Conversation is great. Did you want to respond before I move on, though?
No, I appreciate you bringing that up, and it'd never been broached with me before. And look, there's absolutely no perfect person for any particular role. I felt that she would be a good fit for us for what we needed, but as things move forward, I will certainly keep my eyes open for other talent and other
But you
people.
don't see that as a political patronage?
Well, I'll tell you why, because I didn't really know Kate before this, so
Gotcha.
she's never helped. But political patronage is rewarding your friends, and I didn't really know her that well, and she was not a supporter of mine and all that. So, no, to me, just because someone's in the political system and you hire them doesn't make it necessarily political patronage, you know? And I'm just telling you that fact. You could look it up. I mean, yeah.
I'm sorry? She went against him in the last election? Good to know, actually. There you go.
I didn't know that either,
Yeah.
so I have no idea.
So there you go. Kate Toomey went against you in the last election.
I don't know that to be a fact, so I'm not going to respond. I'm just
You
going to
do?
say...
John fact check. And this is no shade. Again, no shade against Kate Toomey. As far as I'm concerned, these are just the facts as I'm being presented, as they're being presented to me, I should say. But anyway, let's move on.
I'll leave with one that, not
Sure.
that particular, but
Yeah,
to give
go
an example is, one of the most frustrating parts of this work can be the idea that you make a promise, you don't stick to it, okay? The singular biggest change I brought to the Worcester County Sheriff's Department, I campaigned on it, and there's a lot of things we've done. I'm really proud of it. But Manny, let me tell you something. I was the first and only sheriff, and you can go look this up on OCPF, and I'm not going after my other sheriffs to say this. I never take one nickel from an employee of the jail, a spouse of the jail. Your job is your job. You get hired because of who you are, not who you know. That's a fact. And you work hard. And if you don't, you're going to be held accountable, and you're going to be gone if you don't do the job, or
Right.
we'll hold you accountable. And that's because I have the ability to do that, because I don't take money from my people. They don't contribute to me. I'm the only sheriff. If you look around, the other sheriffs, they raise their money, so much of it comes from their staff. I don't believe in that. That to me is a significant change. I'm very proud of it. So I don't look to people. You can't buy your way into my office. I don't have those things. You can't even contribute if you get there. And if you look at my life, and I've been doing this for 20 years now, I mean, sure, there have been people I've hired that I knew, but it was a process you had to go through, and you'd be crazy on some levels to not bring in some people you can trust to have your back.
Yeah.
But we're talking about hundreds of jobs at the jail. Those are open to the public to apply for. And I assure you, if you've got the qualifications and skills, you're going to get every shot at that job. It's not about who you know. And I mean that, and I say it to you looking in the eye. We have built my reputation 20 years on this. So that's all I can say on that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe when that chair of public safety committee comes up, I'll apply. We'll see. We can edit this out. It's okay. All right. And then the last, I know we got to go, but let's see if we can get this question out. And then if we, as far as like editing goes, I can't hear you, man. Last question. What is needed to stop police from using excessive force in the community, and what policing reforms have you advocated for?
Well, you got to remember, I don't do the actual policing, and I'm not avoiding the question, but I'm the care, custody, and control of the inmate population, and then the diversionary person. So I don't do on the street stuff. But I think, as we talked about earlier, you got to help training. You got to hold people accountable. You got to have a better system in place, and you got to hold people accountable. And I'll tell you one of the biggest things in it is I've never been a believer in sometimes disciplinary actions occur within departments, and they're done within they have their own disciplinary unit. I don't think it should go to arbitration. I think if you get accused or brought forward in a case of police brutality, something like that, it should go to a civil court. That way you would take it out of the sort of context of that arbitration system. Because I know if I have officers at the jail and I want to hold them accountable and even terminate them, arbitrators will reinstate them. I can't get rid of bad apples. That's a law. I'm bound by the contracts.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I'm bound by these contracts, which are the labor agreements, and the labor agreements mandate that they get a chance to arbitrate. So I get a guy, I fire him, he goes to arbitration, the arbitrator sends him back. A court wouldn't do that, but an arbitrator will. I think the system's stacked against employers, so sometimes it's not as simple as you think. Sometimes you can't get rid of bad apples because of the system in place, and I'd love to see that changed over. I'd love to see the biggest single change is take the arbitrations and bring them into civil court and sue for your job back, not go to arbitrations, because I feel like they're stacked against us, and we probably lose 75 to 80% of arbitrations, not because these cases are coin flips, but we're losing 80% of them. Why?
Yeah, I'll bark it up the wrong tree. That's why. So at the end of the day, get out there, vote, know what your rights are, get involved, elect leaders that are really going to go after these exact issues. Unfortunately, the sheriff's hands seem to be tied on some of these things. And I thank you so much for giving us a better understanding of what exactly it is that you do and what you are able to make changes in. And again, thank you for all the amazing programs and changes that have been coming to better rehabilitate people and prepare them for reentry into the community. Sheriff Lou Evangelidis, I'm sure you're going to come back with me, right? We're
I'll
going to
be
have
back,
to hang
Manny.
out
I'm going to
again.
get 30-second finish. I'm just going to say,
Yeah.
You're right on the money that maybe I should be clear on people. People have this perception of a sheriff with a big hat and a gun and arresting people.
And the gold star.
That and the big gold star. And, that is historically a figure that's been existing. But that's not Massachusetts sheriffs. We are on the other end. We are the receiving end of getting people in the system and helping to, we call it care, custody, and control, rehabilitate them, keep them off the streets, and also divert people and then help rehabilitate them at the same time. That's who we are. So we're not on the front end as much. That's your local police departments, state police departments. Those are the people on the street that you really probably want to address those issues with more than us.
Awesome. Well, shout out to Steve Stargent right now. Let him know. We're friendly here. We'd love to have you down here and hang out with us, and we can have some of these questions presented to you as well and give you an opportunity to let us know what's on your mind and what you think. But before we go, I want to let everybody know where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you, maybe if they want to help impact change in the Worcester County Sheriff's Department. How can they do that?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm 6'7", so you just see
Yeah.
me walking down the street, grab me. But if you don't, just call the Worcester County Sheriff's Office. Go on the WorcesterCountySheriff.com. We have a Reserve Deputy Sheriff Association. We're always looking for new members. This is a charitable organization that distributes coats and food and puts on senior picnics and serves the community. That's a separate wing of what we do. We have our own website for that, the Worcester County Reserve Deputy Sheriff Association. So, but please go to the website. If there are jobs out there, we post them regularly. Please apply. I will look you in the eye and Manny tell you, if you're a qualified, capable person, you're going to be given a good shot at getting a job there. And that's all you can ask for.
There you go. I might just apply. With that said, everybody, thank you so much.
Of course.
Sheriff Lou, I appreciate you being here as always. And I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Don't forget, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 p.m., you could tune in to this amazing show. And we got some others cooking up too. So keep your eye out at Manny J Media on Facebook and Instagram. That's at Manny J, J-A-E, Media on Instagram and Facebook. But for now, this has been Interviews. I'm Manny.
Sheriff Lou.
See you real soon.